Hi everybody and welcome to yet another edition of Caston's Flowcharts. This is sort of a redo slash expounding upon what we went over in the first flowchart video, which I'm so sorry for the wind in that video. This is why I'm redoing it. I didn't yet develop my telekinesis and couldn't yet control the weather, but now that I can, we're going to try this again. And this video is dedicated in particular to one of my oldest friends, Renan Davidson, aka Betty Harlett. You may know her from such feature bands as Renan Davidson, aka Betty Harlett. This video is dedicated to her, and she's going to have a special bit right over here. So, as the last video started, we have in legal tradition, and it is sacrosanct, this is the power flow of government. This is how Western democracy works. God is up here, and he gives his power, or lends his power, his legitimacy, and his authority through delegation to the crown to govern the people on earth. And if my video would focus, that'd be really cool. There we go. And so the crown governs the people on earth as sort of like God's viceroy, right? And so after the American Revolution, we're going to draw a little dotted line here. Actually, no, we're going to draw the dotted line this way. A little bit, right? Because after the American Revolution, what happens is this. They, the people of the United States of America, in order to form a more perfect union, and to establish justice and ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense and promote the general welfare, and etc., blah, 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 who cares, did ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. To ordain and establish something is actually a sovereign right. It is a right reserved only for sovereigns and people who have sovereignty. And so, by just doing that alone, the people of the United States had basically said, yo, we have sovereignty. And so that was the establishment of the entire American premise of governance, is sovereignty. Who has it, who doesn't, and why, right? The crown has sovereignty. After the American Revolution, that power flow, instead of going from God to the crown and then crown dispersing it through the people, it now goes just like this. Because that center of power moved from there to there, right? Allegedly. And if you watch the last video for any length of time, you will see at the very end why it's allegedly. But regardless of that, the Constitution of the United States, as it is written right now, has several amendments to them. The first one is, well, the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights. And so it has, among other things, your freedom of religion, which I did not expound upon in the last video, but intend to now. The freedom of assembly. In fact, they are next to each other in the amendment. Right? You also have the freedom of association. Free association, freedom of speech is also in here. And I believe freedom of the press is also in that, so press. It's the Fourth Estate, I believe. Anyway, at least it is in Britain. I'm not sure if it is in the United States of America, but it's the Fourth Estate. So this is the First Amendment. This is just only Amendment 1, right? There's 10 amendments. Amendment 2, we all know what that one is, and we're not going to get into that in this video too much. So we're just going to separate that one over here. So, these things over here, the freedom of religion, the freedom to choose your religion, the freedom to associate or assemble with whomever you like, as long as you're doing it peaceably and not, being a jerk, and like destroying things and rioting, different things like that. Freedom of the press, the ability to say what you want. These all imply a freedom of choice. Choice, in fact, is the entire spirit of what all these things are predicated upon. Now, if it weren't for the freedom of choice, people like my friend or any woman in the United States of America, if for some reason might happen to have cause to, take certain actions, this over here, this freedom of choice, is what enables her to do that safely. If not, this is what she would be left with. And we're just going to let that speak for itself, if you understand what I'm eating. But we're going to make that a really fun little dress right now, because I don't know if kids might watch this video. Anyway, ask your parents. Anyway, over here, the Constitution of the United States of America protects these things. These things are called inalienable rights. Inalienable is a fun and fancy word that means it cannot be taken from you under any circumstances. So, yes, it actually does sadly include the Second Amendment. Anyways, so Over here, we have the coronavirus. Oh no! Right? The coronavirus has now assaulted and has put the United States under siege. Unfortunately, the United States of America hasn't updated its operating system in about 2.5 centuries. And so, things like this are a problem today because this has prohibitively difficult means to change it. And so, because of that, this remains a problem. In America, there are thousands of gun deaths every single year. In fact, guns kill 3 times as more people than coronavirus does, right? And have, historically, since the founding, well, not the founding of America, but around the time when the founding of the industry that would eventually create the semi-automatic and automatic weaponry that are apparently just up for grabs if you have enough cash, since the advent of that, this has been a problem. That being said, even with this being a problem and killing 3 times as many people of these sovereign citizens allegedly up here, this is a less of a threat than that suddenly and inexplicably, meaning that although we couldn't modify any of these or this because of this, now, because of this, we can modify the shit out of everything. Who cares? So, coronavirus has now modified your freedom of association. It has modified your freedom of expression, which falls under your freedom of the press. You have your masks, etc. It also has modified your freedom of assembly. These 3 things can now be modified by your local politician. Your local lying politician who will say anything to get elected because that's how politics works. And who has elections to win. And we all know that elections are very fair contests that never scapegoat anybody, like, say, Muslims. Now, let's just go over something else here. We have here the Muslim community. God bless them. Allahu Akbar. Anyway, so let's just say that God forbid there is some sort of incident, right? Over here, for the coronavirus, we have had several steps. We've seen several steps be taken. First, we isolate those people who are at risk for spreading the contagion. Over here, number 2, we then put behavior modifiers on people, 6 feet apart, things like that. We restrict your freedom of assembly to control the contagion. We can quarantine or lock down people to control the contagion. And we can impose fines and even jail time for violating this, that, or that, because of the coronavirus. So tell me, what is the difference between a terrorist attack and the coronavirus? Because in both instances, you seem to have, if you wanted to say, isolate Muslims and make sure that they stay at home, restrict their freedom of assembly, close their mosques, etc., and then it's all to keep you safe. And it's just a very short step to that. And so the difference between the coronavirus and the Muslim community, as an example, being scapegoated after a terrorist attack due to fear is palpable. The risk of that is very high. That is my main concern with the religion part of this entire debacle. The freedom of assembly is bad enough. You have people who are violating these gathering bans on the Constitution, and so judges issue these arrest warrants for people, and then suddenly they turn what normally would be their government where they are considered sovereign into a cage and imprisons them, which actually shouldn't legally be allowed to occur. I don't know if anyone is aware of this, but the word sovereignty means that in instances of conflict, wherein the people and their, say, elected, let's make my buddy Renan over here, let's make her a judge for a second. Right? She's judging people over here. And so this is her little gavel, right? I'm only doing this one-handed or else I draw her, like, you know, like, better. And I guess we're going to make this like a bow or something like that. She's got a nice bow on top. Make it a skull, because she likes skull stuff. And, like, you know, Lenore. She's like Lenore. So this is my buddy over here. She's cool. She's all right. Usually, you know, she's looking pretty mean or angry right now. But that's because these people over here are violating the gathering bans in the Constitution. So the judge here issues arrest warrants for these people. These people get hauled into jail. Now, while they're sitting in jail, if the judge decides that they are guilty of violating these gathering bans that have been legislated because of the coronavirus, which modify your freedom of assembly and your freedom of association, then that means that she's ruling that these people do not have any collective sovereignty, which is the entire predication of the United States of America's governing system, is that they, the people of the United States of America, have that sovereignty and could ordain and establish this Constitution, again, a sovereign right, in the first place. By doing that, she not only cuts off her own authority to even make that ruling, but she's also saying that these people don't have the very premise of the United States of America and its government to begin with, retroactively, which means you sort of undo everything that you've been doing since, say, 1785? Ah, my pen's running out of ink. 1785? So that's a bit of a problem, but it's only a short jump from coronavirus to Muslims have to stay at home. It's a very short jump to that. Why? This is why. Because this is the law, according to U.S. tradition and jurisprudence. The Constitution of the United States is the supreme, actually, they say, law of the land. Right? It was, by tradition and by legal right, the crown. Now, by custom, it is the Constitution of the United States of America with the supreme law of the land. We're going to say lex, because that's the Latin word for law. So, laws is legis, by the way. This is singular, this is plural. I speak Latin. I don't know if you knew that. Anyway, so to have legis concordia is to be in concord with the law. That is to follow the law. To have legis discordia is to not follow the law. Now, what this has now produced, legally speaking, this whole debacle here, has produced this in effect. That which is the law and that which is not the law or against the law is now the same thing. Because the judge has his authority that he gets to make his rulings from the Constitution. Because they, the people of the United States, have given the sovereignty. Well, they haven't given their sovereignty, but they've used their sovereignty to ordain this Constitution, which gives the judge his authority to rule. If the judge rules that these people, while following these rights that cannot be taken away from you under any circumstances, if he says that they're guilty of a crime for doing that which they are in power to do, and have power to do, and have all right to do, if he says that that is the crime, then he is ruling that this is no longer true. My pen's running out of ink. If this is not true, then the entirety of the United States legal system sort of collapses a little bit. Because the power flow has now been interrupted. The people wherefrom the power, legitimacy, and authority that they got from the crown, which gets it from God, has been interrupted. Which means that you are living in some sort of dystopian awfulness that is like Judge Dredd, but worse, right? Anyway, this is the big problem here. Fear. Fear is leading people to do all sorts of things. And you have this here is an absurdity. This cannot be logical. This is not able to logically happen, either legally, actually, legally, or regally, whatever you want to say. This cannot happen this way. That which is the law and that which is not the law cannot be the same thing. The same reason that that which is my pen and that which is not my pen cannot be the same thing. They are separate things. What this is saying is that they are. And that is an absurdity. That can't happen. And so please be more aware of your rights. Please be more aware of what your rights imply, like freedoms of choice, freedom of religion, assembly, association, speech, and the press. And I will say this. There's a quote, and I'm going to mutilate it because I can't remember who actually said it. But it is from the first edition of the Rise and Progress of the English Constitution, Volume 1, by a man named Mitchell and another man who I can't remember. But the quote is this. If during times of crisis you do not act to protect your rights, and those rights are abridged or taken away from you, or power grabbed by someone else, then those rights will permanently be in that person's hands unless you act to protect them. Because what that does is that sort of puts you up for judgment here. And that's not a very good thing. Because then you are then judged for doing what you normally have the right to do, which is associate freely, practice your religion freely, assemble with whomever you want peaceably, freely, and say what you'd like, or express yourself, or to wear a mask or not wear a mask at your leisure. My pen's really running out of ink. I'm sorry. I'm also holding my phone wrong. But anyway, so this is the problem. All of this here. And this right here, as far as the masks to wear them or not wear them go, if you are wearing a mask, you are happy, presumably. We can't tell because you have a mask on. But you are safe and protected from the coronavirus, allegedly, right? You're safe, so happy face, in parentheses, because you have a mask on and we can't tell, we're just assuming. But someone who does not have a mask on, we're going to make him emotionless, because he doesn't give a shit. And we're going to make him right here. He is not so much a threat to you, because you have your mask on, everybody. Don't worry about this guy. This guy has the freedom of expression. He has the freedom to wear a mask or to not wear a mask in public. On private property, it's a different story. If that store, for instance, says, hey, you need to have a mask on in order to enter here, you must respect the kingdom that you're in, dude, and you must wear that mask in that store. If you're just out in public and you're chilling out in the park or something like that, doesn't matter what this says. It doesn't matter what this person says. If you don't want to wear a mask in a public place, you don't wear your mask in a public place, and you have more power to you. Because, hopefully, the people that would be concerned about coronavirus will have worn a mask. You do what you want. You do what you want. And both of you, shut the fuck up about each other. A little more silence, perhaps, is nice and golden. Thank you all for watching. How do I stop?